Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Meanwhile, the company behind brands such as Bisto, Oxo and Mr. Kipling says it's going to start stockpiling raw materials in case there are delays at ports after Brexit. Premier Foods said it has to prepare because of a lack of certainty over arrangements for the UK's departure from the EU next March. Our business correspondent Emma Simpson is here. They're really that worried then?
Well, the company was stressing today that this was just a precautionary measure, that only around 15% of its raw materials comes from the EU. But in the last few weeks, it has decided to start stockpiling some ingredients and packaging. For instance, dried egg powder in those Mr. Kipling cakes, bottle tops, and this will mean tying up some £10 million in working capital. In other words, that's money that the company has to pay up front. And it says it might start stockpiling some finished food products in the new year. Now, Premier Foods is one of our biggest food manufacturers, and it was updating investors today on its Brexit plans as it announced its half-year results. But there are a lot of other companies right now at a crunch point. They want to know what to do with their supply chains and making investment decisions. They still haven't got certainty tonight.
Emma Simpson, thank you.
Well, even if there is now a deal on the table, there is absolutely no guarantee it'll get through Parliament, as you just heard, leaving businesses still uncertain about the future. Tonight, this programme has learned that one of Britain's biggest wholesale food suppliers, Bidfood, which supplies 40,000 customers, including schools, hospitals and supermarkets, is planning to stockpile in case there is no deal. It follows a similar move by Premier Foods, as our business editor, Siobhan Kennedy, now reports.
Ah, the great British roast, where the family comes together and everything stops.
There might be the warm whiff of a deal emanating from Westminster tonight. It's not gravy, though, but gridlock at Britain's ports that's worrying the maker of Bisto.
Ah, Bisto.
Premier Foods said today it would begin stockpiling raw materials to protect itself in the event of a no deal. A £10 million hit it has no choice but to take.
It's not just Premier. Behind me is one of 20 massive warehouses owned by Bidfood, one of Britain's biggest food wholesalers and suppliers to supermarkets, schools, restaurants, pubs and hotels. But 40% of the food that it distributes comes from abroad. And Channel 4 News has learned that it too plans to stockpile supplies in the event a deal cannot be reached.
Bidfood tonight confirmed it was planning to hold up to 6 weeks' worth of critical stock, especially food used for meals in schools and hospitals. In a statement, it told this programme.
Bidfood has been shaping plans for some time. Our initial assessments have suggested that in the event of a no-deal Brexit, we may need an additional 7,000 pallets of stock. And like many other businesses, we're having to consider alternative warehousing locations to house contingency stock.
The food industry, just like cars and medicines, a stark example of the vulnerability of just-in-time supply chains. A source inside the supermarket Morrison's told us it was busy assessing other routes into the UK by air and sea if Dover grinds to a halt, saying it's their single biggest fear, given nearly a third of what we eat enters via Britain's busiest port. To help smooth that process, Channel 4 News has learned the government has also set aside additional funding to help deal with the onslaught of expected customs checks. The plans seen by this programme show an £8 million support package being prepared by the Treasury, designed, it says, to help the customs industry in the event of a no deal. £5 million is allocated to help fund training, another £3 million to support new technology. But the industry estimates up to 12,000 extra customs agents would be needed to handle as many as 100 million extra declarations. So many believe the money simply isn't enough and has come too late.
This £8 million for customs agencies is only a tiny drop in the ocean, and very late in the day. We're really concerned that lots of things won't be ready in time, and even the HMRC's own chief has said that any arrangements post the 29th of March will be suboptimal as far as customs is concerned.
Of course, any government intervention is welcome, but for some, like Premier Foods and Bidfood, perhaps too late. They're voting with their wallets and their pallets to keep the food flowing.
Welcome back to Westminster, where there is finally a draft Brexit divorce deal on the table. Only a handful of ministers have seen it so far, but that hasn't stopped the speculation about who might support it and who might vote it down. Meanwhile, behind me, thousands of Remain supporters are at a rally demanding a second referendum to let the people decide, a people's vote. Plenty more has been happening on the Brexit front today as well. A no-deal Brexit would cost the NHS £2.3 billion, according to the Nuffield Trust. It says red tape and trade barriers will push up the cost of everything, from MRI scanners to syringes to drugs. The Trust calculates this would absorb all the money available for improvements in patient care for the next 2 years. Britons travelling to the EU after Brexit won't need a visa, even if there's no deal, the European Commission has decided. But the arrangement depends on the UK extending the same courtesy to EU citizens. However, UK nationals will be barred from the fast lanes at airports that'll be reserved for EU citizens and the Swiss. But EU workers here seem to be feeling less welcome. The number working in the UK has fallen by 4.5%, the sharpest decline since records began more than 20 years ago. And the Office for National Statistics says the fall seems to be accelerating. There are 136 days left to Brexit. Now for some voices that you rarely hear from in the Brexit debate. More than 600,000 children live in the UK who were born elsewhere in the EU. Many of them came to Britain years ago and now consider this place home. So what does Brexit mean for these young people who are still trying to find their place in the world? Our Scotland correspondent, Kieran Jenkins, has been finding out.
This is my family, the Horvath family.
And this is my mum, Ursula, and we are the Novak family.
This is my brother, and this is my mum, and my dad's at work, and that's my family.
If you thought you'd heard it all on Brexit, come into these homes. Meet these young people.
What are you going to be, Kitty?
I'm going to be a Broadway star.
Born in Eastern Europe,
Meow.
raised in Scotland.
Half of me is Polish and half of it's not, I guess.
A voice, they say, almost entirely missing from the Brexit debate.
I don't think it's been heard at all, at least not by the politicians.
It's tea time in Airdrie for Kitty's family. She's one of more than 600,000 children living in the UK who were born elsewhere in the EU.
How would you describe your nationality?
It's really hard because I'm always like, I'm Hungarian, I was born there and I'll always be Hungarian. But at the same time, I feel pretty Scottish sometimes.
In the East End of Glasgow, student Marta and her mum.
Do you ever feel sort of torn between the two different parts of your identity?
Yeah, when I go to Poland, I feel sort of like an outcast because like my accent's a bit different when I speak Polish as well.
And in Dalgety Bay in Fife, 13-year-old Olivia.
Like people that don't necessarily know me that much, when they find out that I'm not from here, they're kind of surprised. It kind of feels nice that I know that someone would think I'm from here.
Brexit will not be the biggest event in these young lives.
So, when you came to Scotland, how much English could you speak?
Like 2 words.
They've been turned upside down once already.
How important was it to you at the start to feel like that you fitted in?
Quite a lot, like it was quite important to me.
When she came to Scotland, Kitty was 9. Her father found work as a plumber. Her mother sorts recycled clothes.
1 or 2 times when I'm on the train talking to my mum in Hungarian, like I was on the phone and this woman just started shouting at me saying, "You're in an English-speaking country, why don't you just learn the language?" I just felt really angry, like why would you say stuff like that? You don't know me. And I can speak English, I speak English perfectly fine.
A recent University of Strathclyde study of over 1,000 Eastern European children living in Britain found more than 3/4 had experienced some kind of racist abuse.
I did get a few comments like at the start. People would call me like a Polish cow and stuff like that, but it doesn't really,
They call you a Polish cow?
Yeah.
And how old were you then?
Like 11 or 12.
For these young people, does Brexit feel personal?
Well, I feel like I'm part of the club right now, but I feel like the members of that club are trying to get rid of me. That's what I'm feeling right now. So I feel like, I love the club. I love the club so much, but I feel like the members of the club are trying to get rid of me.
How does it affect how Hungarian you feel?
I just feel like I have to become more Scottish now to fit in with British society and just try to fit in here to make sure I can stay here.
What does that mean, trying to be more Scottish?
Just to act like more like them and act less like Hungarians, so they'll accept me more.
After Brexit, each of these families will be asked to register for what the government calls settled status.
Do you know what the process is after Brexit for what you need to do in terms of the legal stuff?
No, not at all. Does anyone know?
They may find settled status confusing, but all these families say they would apply. The government has been warned it risks a second Windrush generation among thousands who may not. Marta, whose mum also works in a clothes sorting factory, would sooner become a British citizen. Cost for each person, over £1,000.
As soon as the Brexit vote happened, we looked into it and stuff. It's so expensive, and we just want. It's not something we would be able to afford right now.
For Marta, Kitty and Olivia, Brexit is coming fast. And the world they thought they knew is changing all over again.
I want someone to tell me that I am safe in this country or I'm not going to get kicked out. I just want certainty.